Right, welcome back. Hopefully that was interesting to all of you. There is a lot of really good conversations that we had throughout that time in London with everyone, and we want to continue that conversation with all of you here. And so obviously, thank you for the questions that are starting to pop up into the chat. Please continue. I think there's quite a bit that we can chat today. Right, where shall we start? Shall we start with the hardware part quickly? And we kind of covered some of those bits. There's a few questions around that, and then we move into some of the features that we had. So Hugo, how you doing? Sorry I missed your FMX. Around the Mac side, so Nuke 16, yes, it works on Intel. As you know, we continue to support Mac as much as we can, obviously, and we will continue doing Macs as much as we can. It will be probably more attached to when as well Mac will do some pulses into the OS working in Intel. So we'll be working together with them to make sure until when we can support it. But there will be a point where we unfortunately will have to let Intels go at one point, but not yet. But we'll keep you posted on that one. Then, what are the other questions? Oh yeah, so Calvary HQ, which is asking a lot about the hardware and kind of the specs around on the website. So do we expect someone using a Core 2 Duo from 2006? Well, actually, the funny thing here is that it's not necessarily that people are going to use it as the final compositing hardware that they use, but a lot of companies still have a lot of old hardware that they use for rendering or that they have around. So it is very important to us to make sure that you can still run in old hardware. And sorry, Hugo, I'm going to drop you there for a second as well. But, like Hugo is on an Intel Mac from a few years back. So he's making sure that we continue some of that and we continue that support for all hardware into that point. So that is part of using the testing on and making sure that we are actually testing on hardware that we know some facilities still own and still have in their pipeline. So that is part of the reason, but obviously we also know that people are doing ridiculous things with Nuke nowadays, and people are comping things at 16K and things like that. And you probably don't want to use a machine like that to a Core 2 to do some of that work. You really want a proper beefy machine and new network and speed drives, everything that is needed for it. So that is kind of where we are with that. So that's kind of why those system specs are there. So yeah, that is kind of the hardware bit, right? Is there anything that I have missed, people? All right. Cool. So shall we move to some questions around kind of the actual release and bits on the release? Shall we say that we start with the 3D system, actually? I just saw that there is a new one there. So when is the new 3D system coming out of beta, and is it possible to render environmental lights yet? And that comes from Xavi Burke, I imagine. Jonathan, do you want to jump onto that one, on what we're thinking?
Yeah, sure. Hopefully the 3D system is going to be coming out of beta soon, maybe this year. That's the intention. Just to reinforce that the old system, the legacy system, will still be working for a while. We're not exactly sure when that will be deprecated, but the new system hopefully will be coming out of beta, at least initially, for projection workflows and the primary comp workflows that people really want to use it for this year. And then rendering environment lights. You can render environment lights as specular reflections off of a surface, but there's no diffuse environment, so there's no secondary illumination quite yet. So the primary, the ability to do reflective surfaces in environment lights, that is working.
Cool. So a lot more that will come through the 3D system, and just kind of to iterate Jonathan there. Like the two systems will be there for a while, and obviously we will deprecate one, but there is a lot of really cool, interesting things on the new one, and we want to really see people kind of using the new USD system and see the value of all the stuff that we are putting in there. Right. So what else do we have?
There's some questions about the AI tools or future prospects with that.
Yeah,
I could tell you a little bit about that.
sure.
Yeah, so there certainly has been, as if you're familiar with Copycat and Cattery, those are the big tool sets so far in our product line. And an important delineation is that the stuff that's in Copycat there that ships with the product, you train yourself, right? So that means that you're free of licensing worries with the IP, the intellectual property of what you train from your project in Copycat. And then there's Cattery, and that is a bunch of models, external commercially available models that have been ported into the cat file format that is being added to all the time. There's some as recently as like the last 6 months with Segment Anything and Llama, for example, updated. Beyond that, there is some research going on. We can't tell you much about that at this point, other than that we've got some ideas, and we'll be hearing about it more in the future. But that's definitely part of that vision.
Yeah, and I think it is important as well to, I think, the reiterate kind of the cat stuff and the Cattery, right? You have a lot of models there. There is also people have posted some other ones on GitHub and things. So have a look. There is a lot of really cool plugins. The same that it has happened in Nukepedia and people creating their own plugins for Nuke. That is part of what we wanted to do with the Cattery and with kind of the cat files and the ability for people to create some of those nodes. So yeah, about the community. It's all about the community. And right, what else do we have? Ooh, actually, Jonathan, particle systems on the 3D.
Yeah, the particle system is going to get upgraded. It's not going to be happening with this initial coming out of beta release. Again, we're focusing more on texturing and projection workflows, like the core, the main use of the 3D system in Nuke. Particle systems will be an ongoing effort, and we're going to be using the power of USD's engine to enable that. And the main thing that we'll be attempting to do is to keep the current particle nodes functional and make them work with the new system. That's doesn't really work at the moment, but that is the intention. And then we'll be upgrading the particle system to take advantage of all of USD's powerful functionality, and that will be coming in the future.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I think I'm gonna, and since we don't have Chloe here, there was a question actually in one of the videos from before on if we have thought about moving the Blink script editor as well to other areas of the script editor.
Yeah, I think that really is based on interest. If you guys would like to see any different things on Blink script, yeah, let us know. The more the users want those things, the more they will prioritize this. So if this is something you would like to see, please reach out.
Thank you. Right, what else do we have? Let's have a look. Oh, actually, there's actually starting to be a question about multi-shot. Is the multi-shot work with OCIO shot variables? Can we actually make those two work?
Yes, but it's also in progress. We did have first implementation, and there are some cases where you will be able to work OCIO. For a bigger implementation with OCIO, we will need to wait a tiny bit more of time, but it is definitely on the roadmap and one of the priorities.
Cool.
And I actually got a question, if I can, just to throw it out there. Has anyone already tried the variables workflows or the multi-shot workflows? If anyone has, it would be nice to hear what are you guys trying.
Cool. So in the meantime, while we see if people come back up in there and tell us a little bit if they have been using multi-shot and variable-enabled workflows. There is a few questions around education, actually. So I'm a beginner with Nuke. What do you recommend is my next steps? I'm experimenting with the basics of Nuke so far. I'm going to open that to the three of you, because I think that will be quite interesting feedback from everyone a little bit. Who wants to start?
I can start. Play around, have fun, take a couple of shots, and try to maybe imitate looks instead of like focusing on copying notes specifically. Try to find ways of doing something that you want to do, and from there maybe learn specific techniques.
Yeah, I would add that if you're used to layer-based compositing, welcome to the world of nodes. It's a wonderful world. And think multi-channel. That is that pipe between nodes is not just RGB. It can be dozens of channels in a multi-channel workflow. And you can do things with an amazingly simple node graph that is very complex, mixing speculars, shadows, depth, motion blur. Those things can all be pulled out at any stage in your graph. And that's one of the big powers of Nuke historically.
Yeah, exactly. Nuke is, the good analogy is it's like a Lego box, right? You've got all these tools, but you're confronted with an empty blank canvas initially. And so you have to kind of just begin by building the base of what you want to do. I want to be reading images in, I want to be manipulating something, and think about it from a step-by-step point of view. When you're building a Lego project, you want to be building up. And that's exactly this kind of approach you should take to building a Nuke script. You want to be thinking about your ultimate goal, but where do I need to start? I need to start by reading an image, and then I want to do something to that image, and then find the Lego pieces, right? The nodes that you need to do each of the steps, and just get familiar with the kit, get familiar with the nodes that you have at your disposal. And that's a key piece to learning how to use Nuke, is understanding what you have at your disposal. So it's like, I know I'm going to pick this Lego part and make this window a certain shape, and I'm going to use a particular node to do this function. And so it's really familiarizing yourself with the tools that you have available to you, and being able to build on that.
And it's very difficult to follow all these three with those good comments, but my only one is actually going to be photography. As a VFX artist and as a compositor, just think about photography and learn about lenses and take it from there. And obviously we have Foundry Learn as well, so there is a lot of information there. Really great tutorials from a lot of people that is actually in this chat as well, on everything. And obviously there is people that do full training with Nuke, like Hugo, that obviously is there, and some other guys that are kind of around. So go around. There is really good compers and artists around that really teach Nuke in a great way. So there is a lot to learn in the whole process, and talk to people, talk in the channels. There is really, there is nothing like sharing knowledge with people. So try and share some more. Right, where shall we go now? There is another one for the multi-shot side. So with multi-shot, a hack use, especially with studios, how do you see Nuke Studio position as in this multi-shot workflow? So Anais, Will, Jonathan, how do you think? What do you want to talk about there?
Wow. So I think people are starting to make the connection, and I think this comment maybe points that between sort of pipelining and doing shots in parallel, which is really empowered by the variable enabled workflow, or what we sometimes call multi-shot. It's a lot more than multi-shot. It's multi anything you want, and very controllable. But they're making the connection, I think, to editorial, because once you start working on 10, 20, 50 shots, you could start thinking about 150 or 500 shots at a time. Then you've got sort of a timeline problem, and we are already starting to join those dots, join those threads. It's quite possible that a workflow could start with a conform of an edit, could pass its way into a parallelized compositing process, and then come back to an editorial review workflow where you're still kind of thinking of those sets of shots. So watch this space. This variable-enabled workflow is a big sort of paradigm shift for Nuke users historically. While some customers have built their own, this is a real built-in way of doing this with variables. We expect to add more in the future, expanding through the whole sort of family of products. How's that?
Yeah, that is great. Yeah, that's great. I would just say, like in 16.0 and 15.2, when we have released multi-shot, those are a bunch of features for the node graph. They are quite robust. There are a lot of things that you can do already, but that's really not the end, not the goal. We really want to go beyond that. We are going to be working on the pipeline, and eventually, obviously, the goal is to combine all those great sets that all those great features that we already have in the node graph with the timeline and bring that into Nuke Studio.
So yeah, there is a lot of things that we have in there. Obviously, there is with this area, there is a lot that we'll be doing, right? And a lot more. This was the first version of it, so there is a lot of things that will come through it. Right, I'm gonna move us on to actually, this is an interesting one, File.io. And it's a question from Hugo. Any plans to support more video formats, example, newer MXF version from Sony, new SDKs from new video formats from more cameras?
In a word, Hugo, yes. We're going to do a big round of updates. We're watching constantly, and we're talking to the camera manufacturers, making sure we're tuned in to what people need in comp, as well as all the other cameras out there. So we're prioritizing those. You should see some updates in the next major version of Nuke, as well as a File.io, coming to a download near you, not too long, hopefully.
Cool. So I'm actually gonna go back. Actually, no, let's do this. So again, sorry, I'm gonna pick another one from Hugo, but will Jonathan and Ian's talk from FMX be released on YouTube?
I don't know.
I think it will come from the FMX guys. So I think some of those talks get released later on. I think it will be a pleasure for all of us that didn't manage to be there in that stage and see Jonathan having that great conversation with Ian about the history of Nuke. So I think hopefully we'll have it online at one point.
Rebecca says that it's available on FMX on demand. I don't know if that means that it's already on YouTube, but for those of you that were not there, that I think that is most of you, I would say that it was very cool. and we were very excited about the conversation. And when Jonathan showed his shot of Titanic, one of the first ones, the whole room was clapping.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but it gives a good feeling for how long this tool has been in use, in practical use. It's been 30 years now that it's actually been in continuous use.
Wow.
Again, I really want to see that conversation because I know it was really good fun. So jealous. Right. I'm going to take us back to multi-shot because there was a few other questions that came through as we were discussing and I moved through. So this one I think is quite interesting. So Farai is asking, for smaller teams on solo artists, what's the smartest way to plug multi-shot workflows and variables into a lean Nuke setup without overcomplicating things?
Would you like to reply to this one, Jonathan, or should I go?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think the challenge is that variable-enabled workflows and multi-shot is really designed for large numbers of shots. That was the original concept, but that's not stopping you from using it in your day-to-day workflows. But just to keep in mind that you have to kind of think ahead when you're doing variable-enabled workflows. You have to think about what I need to have switch, what I need to have change. It's sometimes difficult to, after the fact, add in a bunch of variable functionality. You can do it, but it behooves you to think ahead for thinking, what am I planning on being able to change? Obviously, the shot is an obvious one, but whether or not I need a different blur, or color correction, need variables to control those kinds of things from shot to shot. And yeah, it's really trying them out. You're going to be putting them in expressions and using switches, so you can dynamically change your scripts over time to support variables. But it's always behooves you to think ahead for what are you planning on being able to do with a particular shot. And that will allow you to set things up more cleanly and not have to scramble at the end trying to add in functionality when you're trying to get a shot out. You don't want to be, trying to deliver a shot and realize that, oh my gosh, I need this particular switch and I need to then retrofit that switch into a bunch of scripts. So the more you think ahead, the better off you'll be.
Do you want to add anything, Anais, to that?
No, I think that's great. I would just say, if there is a chance that they're referring to variable-enabled workflows and not only multi-shot, there will be also other things that they will be able to do. For example, setting different renders. It could be renders for the dailies or renders for deliveries, because there will always be a little bit of time that you will have to spend setting up the scripts or the variable system before you actually use them. So there may be a few workflows that you are using all the time besides just the multi-shot, like the different renders. You could start with those things and then build up from there. Like you can have a simple variable system at the beginning and then continue to make that more complicated.
One way that I thought about it is you could imagine a sort of a template that works for every shot that you have. Like if you're rendering an animation, like a 3D CG animation, short film, you could potentially have all your passes exactly the same and be able to make one template that renders every shot. And all you have to do is change the reads and change the write and change the frame range. And theoretically, that could be a very simple multi-shot system. However, you're going to want to make a tweak on shot 11. So that would be one that you would isolate out and say, in the case of shot 11, I want it to do this slightly different thing, but everything else is the same. And then in the case of shot 14, I want it to do these two things. In the case of shot 20, I want to do these two things. These are the overrides that are basically taking that shot and taking it down a slightly special route, but still it's within that template or within that structure of the variable controlled script, if you like, or graph scope variable, as we call it. It's changing the scope of the graph for that particular shot. And that's where you could start from. I think it actually leads us to a question, Anais, from Dennis, which was, can you render multiple shots in that workflow?
Yeah. Jonathan, would you like to reply this one? I can, but you're going to be better at explaining this than me, probably.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to do a render of Nuke on a render farm, you'll do that through some command line usually. So you'll start Nuke up via command line argument, and you'll pass the script to it in a frame range or a frame number that you want to render. In that same exact command line path, you can then specify the values of certain GSVs. So you can specify that you want to set the shot to shot 1, shot 2, shot 3. You can pass in the values of those GSVs through the command line, and therefore Nuke will start up with those variables set to that value and therefore render in that context. So that is the primary way that it will likely be used on a render farm. Yeah.
Thank you. I remember that we actually got some documentation for these, so you can go to the Foundry Learn variables command line render, and you will find it. I'm pretty sure the command line for these is var. So just find it for that. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to follow up with what Will said, which is one of the, and it's to multi-shot and how to set up naming conventions. Turns out to be a very important thing. So if you're working on a bunch of shots and there's no commonality between the shots, like the names of the shots are each some random word, or they're organized in a very chaotic way on your file system. That's some of the challenges that you'll start to hit. Is the variables work best when you have good name conventions for shots, for sequences, for jobs, that kind of thing, so that you can embed the variables in various places and use that commonality between the organization of your content. And so it really behooves you to think ahead for how you organize your content on disk, how you name things, because that will help you in the end. And most of the large facilities have a lot of restrictions around that and tight control around naming conventions for that very reason.
Thank you both. So I think that was on the multi-shot side. So I'm going to move us on. There's a few other bits coming around in different areas. So let's actually move to deep. So solve of vengeance. I think. Any plans of updating and improving the collection of default deep nodes, as well as ray render for Nuke for the releases? Jonathan, do you want to have a first go, and then I'll have a chat?
Yeah, I mean, to ray render specifically, the new Scanline Render 2 version is a ray tracer, and so will replace ray render. So the intention is not to update ray render to work with the new system. It's to basically include the ray tracing capabilities of ray render in Scanline Render, so it will just simply be a single render node. And then, do you want to talk about Deep one?
Yeah, and Deep, yeah. So with Deep is an interesting thing. We are looking at what we do around the system. There is quite a few bits and pieces to do there. Especially, we think that speed is an important part with Deep, and that is kind of one of the main things that we are thinking about and kind of looking into. If you have any specific workflows, nodes, things that you're looking for that you think we should be supporting, please let us know. That'll be great to know as well what type of workflows you're trying to do with Deep that you cannot do at the moment.
I saw a couple more questions on AI, referencing ModNet from Jamie Bello there. It's crazy, but sometimes the mats are not working well. Well, image segmentation, especially stable over video, it's an evolving technology, right? It's getting better. There are new models out there, and we're adopting them and putting updates into the category. But it's some things it'll work for, some things it won't. I'm amazed that it seems like every year there's something new and better for a take on depth estimation or isolation of people and objects. So you should expect the latest and greatest to arrive in category. Can we extract splines? Well, that's a tricky one, right? That's not really what these tools do. They're image to image. In other words, they take a ground truth and they produce another image, whether it's a matte or a normals or a cosmetically beautified face or blue eyes, like in the Dune movie, all done with Copycat, by the way. But does that necessarily produce parameters, metadata, splines? Not at this point in time. but I certainly think it's something that our research folks are interested in and investigating what the possibilities are. So again, we'll talk again on this one, I hope.
Yes, we'll continue talking about ML and things as we go through the next few releases. But I think an important thing that you just said there is the splines, and I think that probably a question back for you guys is that as you are comping still and doing a lot of work in there, how valuable are the splines? And we think that the splines are really valuable. We think that you as an artist are deciding where the splines are, where the edge of the things are. And for us, that is why that is so important. So, yeah, it will be great to continue to listen to you on that area and what you want in there. And that's also why we did the improvements in Roto and the speed improvements in Roto for this. Right, where shall we move on to now? I'm gonna move us to, there is performance questions, I think, is the next one. Yeah. Can we release project workloads focus on key new components for performance purposes and benchmarking? So this one has been an interesting one. We have done some basic things with different providers around this to make sure that people have an idea of kind of the type of workflows. It really depends on, are you working in 8K, 16, 2K, 4K? What is the infrastructure that you are on? It has a lot of variables. So I think each studio kind of have built things for that. Now, the main thing that we are interested in at the moment that we are looking at is if we can actually give some internal tools that we use for us in development to give you some more performance information. So at the moment, we have the profile node that exists in the node graph. We have the -p to run Nuke with, so it will give you some information of the performance of the script. And again, with the node, you get more of a visual understanding of that for artists. And we are thinking how we can expand some of those tools to give you a better understanding of what is the performance and how is the performance of Nuke in all those systems. Cool. And then there is a question around, oh no, that was as well about benchmark, which I think is kind of from CoolBFX. Which I think kind of matches kind of that answer, I think. What else do we have? Right, so platform. What is the best action I can take to migrate to Nuke 16? Right now, I am using Nuke 15, and I read that the PySite version has changed. Most of have accumulated a lot of Nukepedia tools, third-party plugins and Nukepedia tools. So how can they move quickly?
Well, welcome to the world of updating software to the VFX reference platform. But that is an important thing, right? Yeah, as you point out there, that person writing, it is PySite 6 that is now supported now in version 16. There are some updaters out there, like the sort of Python 2 to Python 3 updaters that might be worth looking at. I'm told that the syntax between PySite 2 and PySite 6 is not that different, but maybe in your case it is going to be more complex. We've accumulated a lot of stuff like that ourselves that we have to budget for in an update. I mean, I'd suggest reaching out to the community for tips on that update as well.
Yeah, I would also like to say, obviously, if you need to change to 16 because you for any other reason, that is obviously something that you will need to do, or for some specific features. But if, for example, what you were interested in are some specific things, as the multi-shot workflows that we are talking about, or the route improvements, those are in 15.2 as well. So you could stay a little bit longer in the 15 series, and if you need to, and then upgrade to 16 whenever you actually have to do so.
And I think as well, and probably we'll get shared on the chat, we actually have a article on how to do that easily, especially for some of the Nukepedia tools. that we know that is some basic changes that you can do, and a lot of them will work. And we know that a lot of the Nukepedia people that have put their notes there keep updating them with time to actually do the update. We try to let people know as soon as possible when we are doing these changes. Like this is part of the BFX reference platform requirements that we built with the different studios and the different software vendors and everything. We all agree on kind of these things. So it would be always good to actually kind of check those are released earlier in the year, so everyone knows kind of where we're going and what changes we will be doing for that next year. So I always suggest to people to always keep an eye on that, because that will give you an idea of which libraries we will be changing throughout the next year or so. And normally that gets released around SIGGRAPH as well, so you can actually find that information normally after SIGGRAPH. Right. So the next one I'm going to go with is, I'm going to leave, Claudia, I'm going to get to you. I'll get at the end, but I'm going to jump into Hugo's question on Nuke. Are you planning to include more NukeX features in Nuke? Thinking, for example, 8K support or more Python, for example. So on this one, it's something that we are reviewing permanently, and we are looking at what are the needs of the community of the Nuke side. It's something that we're looking into. What is that? Most of the NukeX stuff is there. It's actually just the resolution and the Python part. But the rest is a whole Nuke Studio, right? Nuke. So the main thing is kind of what are the workflows that we want to enable. The resolution is probably one that sounds very needed at the moment, so we probably are looking into that. And yeah, that'll depend as well. It'll be good to know, for example, with the Python one, what are you trying to do that you're missing on Nuke? That would be quite interesting to understand what are the needs at that space and what type of pipeline you're trying to do there. And I'm gonna move us on to the last one, I think, from the questions. I don't know if there has anything else been going on, but I can see Claudia asking about how is Nuke Stage going to fit in? Well, it fits in. It fits in the sense that it is part of the family, and we understand what we wanted to do on set and bring Nuke onto set. Nuke has been on set already, but how can we actually be part more on that real-time workflows and at really high resolutions, and how we can bring the experience of comp artists. And we have been the ones that have finished the shots normally, the people that actually understand the lens and what is happening in that final shot, and how can we create that final look. So if we're going to go back to set and try to create some shots there, we wanted to give that experience of Nuke and compare that and understand the workflows that we have from there. So the idea will be, what you will get is that ability to actually, if you listen to what we're doing on the 3D system and around projection workflows and matte paintings, it's kind of that connection from that part of the workflow to being on set. So that is how it fits, and there is a lot of connection in that area. That is what we're trying to do at the moment, and that is how Nuke Stage came from.
Austin Myers is telling us that 16K is so last month, and that now it's 32K. Is that
Austin? Yeah. So yeah, I know, Austin. This is I keep joking every time that we go to NAB. What is going to be the number of Ks this year? But is continues to increase. To increase, and it is very, very interesting. But I think there is moments that is worth it, and the question is, we should be using those workflows when they're worth it, and when they're not, we should be still kind of keeping our minds and do a bit of sanity check of why we're working at those resolutions. So that's my suggestion, though.
Always have an 8K
right.
proxy, I guess that's one way to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see people running around with stereo as well on top of that. I know. So I think I'm gonna give 2 seconds. Is there any last questions from anyone? No? See, 2 seconds. No? People, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be with you and chatting with you. It is a pleasure to have, obviously, thank you, Jonathan, Will, and Ais for being here with us and having this whole conversation, and being so honest with everyone on where we are, what we're trying to do. And this is what we're looking for. Continue the conversations on the forums, chats, LinkedIn, anything that you want. And hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone.